Eddy Show, where we are working hard to be a threat to the Great Reset by having wonderful fellow warriors in this world on our show. And today, I've got my friend, the unstoppable Erin Elmore. How are you, Erin?
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we could connect. You know, we see each other everywhere at all these events. And to refresh your memory, in case you forgot, we originally met at the Trump rally, I guess. 2020, it was the one that TPUSA held at Dream City Church, and that's where I first got to know you, and you and I have a bunch of friends in common and all of that. But, you know, the rest is history, because now we're just super pals.
I know. I do feel like I see you everywhere, which is such a treat, and seeing friendly faces at all of the Turning Point events, and I see you in Palm Beach, which is where I live, so you're really everywhere, and I enjoy getting to see you in various places around the country.
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to have you on, well, two things really. Number one, I want to have the audience hear a little bit about you and your background and how you got to be the superstar you are, running around hobnobbing with all these wonderful people. But talk about kind of how you formed the passions to get involved in all this stuff, and then let's rap about all kinds of crazy things that are going on now.
Okay, that sounds really fun to me. So I have a long, twisted tale. So I went to college and I majored in broadcasting and political science. And my parents thought I would make a great attorney, so they said you should go to law school. So I went straight to law school, passed the bar, practiced for like 3 minutes, and I knew it just wasn't for me. And right around that time, there was a very popular #1 rated show on television. Everyone was watching it. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone loved it. It was called The Apprentice. And there was an audition in my hometown of Philadelphia, and my friends were calling me in my law firm. I was sitting there slaving away. They said, you would be perfect for the show. Go audition. So long story long, I stood in line like every other schlep, and I wore a bright red suit, which is funny now that it's like MAGA red. And I just went in there, and I looked around, and I said, I'm going to get on this show. And I think 2 to 3 million people tried out, and I was one of the 18 people selected. And that's how I formed my bond with, our great President Trump. And he said afterwards, yes, I heard the famous words, you're fired. But it was actually a great opportunity because he asked me what I wanted to do next. And I said, I'd really like to go into broadcasting. So I ended up, with his help, getting a job as a reporter at an NBC affiliate in Jacksonville, Florida, NBC 12, First Coast News. And I was pounding my pavement, getting my feet wet, doing horrible, reading a teleprompter and writing live stories on TV. It was a huge learning curve. And this was a long, long time ago. And I did that for about a year. And then I went back to Philadelphia because that's where I'm from. And I did some legal consulting, but I also was on air at QVC, which is the home shopping channel. And believe it or not, that's a great way to learn a lot about live TV, because they're moving product live on air by the minute with data and numbers and reporting. So people will be chirping in your ear, move the red, it's selling out. So you'd have to pivot what you were saying and go to the red item and talk. So it was a really great way to take live calls and learn to deal with what's happening in real time. So that was super fun. And then in 2015, when President Trump thought about running, I got a job as one of his campaign surrogates / spokespeople. I was the deputy press secretary at the RNC. So that gets us, and then I did a lot on Fox, tons of Fox. Now a lot more Newsmax, got a job with Turning Point USA. But it's been a real journey. But I wasn't always a Republican. My family, they started out as like Reagan Republicans, and then they voted for Bill Clinton, and then supported Barack Obama, and they signed up for Hope and Change and got a lot of new IRS agents. And now we all sort of, it took President Trump to really show us and wake us up. And now, we're very hardcore, very, very hardcore Republicans. And I think that's what's so great about President Trump is that people that weren't paying super close attention started to say, wait a minute, these news organizations aren't really telling us the whole story. Let me start digging myself. And wait a minute, there's corruption in Washington. So I think he gave a lot of people that hadn't been spoken to by politicians before this sort of bravery, this voice, this thirst for knowledge and information. And that's why his base is so loyal. And I'm one of those people.
Yeah, that's cool. So, let's talk about him for a minute, because I met him way before he was running for president, like you. And actually, I think the years, it might have been right around the Apprentice years, but I insured one of his hotels. So it's his hotel in Vegas. And I happened to be there having meetings with his, the team that runs that hotel and handles all of the insurance stuff and everything for that. And I prior to that, I had talked to, again, I didn't really care about him. I wasn't into The Apprentice. He was just a guy who I knew who he was. I, read The Art of the Deal, many, many years before, but otherwise, I mean, he was a, businessman / pseudo celebrity in my mind at that time. But I had no other real feelings about him. But then I remember taking note of a couple of things. Number one, the general manager of that hotel was his former driver years prior. And he had just told me a story over lunch about Trump, and he said that the moment I went to work for Mr. Trump, he told me if I paid attention, I wouldn't be just his driver for long. And this guy was a very competent general manager of a hotel. And I liked him a lot, and he was great. And the other thing that I noticed is I got to meet Eric Trump. Yeah. And I remember it was remarkable that his kids love him, because there's so many pastors, there's so many politicians, there's so many celebrities, I mean, you name it, that are big figures where their kids absolutely despise them. Everybody in the world thinks they're amazing, but behind the scenes, their kids hate them. And his kids have a great respect for him. So I remember thinking that early on, again, before he ever ran for president and all that stuff. But when he came into the hotel, just again, coincidentally, I happened to be there, and I got to, meet him very briefly, say hello, and that was... what was remarkable is there are a few human beings on the planet that have this, vortex of charisma that they just create. And when you're in their presence, I mean, you feel something magical. And
I think, like you said, he is that magnetic figure. And I've also said on television, if you look at like Hunter and Ashley Biden and how they've materialized into the terrible, decrepit adults that they are, look at all of President Trump's children. They're all successful, wonderful, kind, philanthropic, well-adjusted children.
Yeah, well put together.
Now. They're all wonderful, wonderful people. And I think you have to attribute that to parenting and how he raised those kids. You don't often see that.
Yeah, no, it's true. So anyway, I was never particularly, and I get accused, as I know you do, and everybody, that I'm a ultra MAGA guy, and I was never particularly a MAGA. You can't find me with a red hat anywhere, and not that I'd be opposed to wearing a Make America Great Again hat.
Well, I have lots of MAGA hats, and I am proudly ultra MAGA. I love wearing all the Trump stuff, and I love wearing the MAGA stuff. But I also do, when I lived in Philadelphia, I live in Florida now, I like to wear it just because the liberals would cry, and that there is some joy in that. I can't help it. But speaking about Alvin Bragg, who is the New York District Attorney, Soros basically funded him. He is letting people committing murder out of jail with no bail. He is reducing everything to misdemeanors. So you can't then go attack President Trump and try to say he's some criminal when you're not really arresting actual criminals. But because this is a state case, not a federal case, I believe that, like in New York, they can't go to Florida and get him, right? Because they don't have the jurisdiction. So he would either have to voluntarily turn himself in, or there would be like a fugitive bond, I guess. And I believe DeSantis would have to allow him to be extradited. So and if Alvin Bragg were to get like a fugitive bond and make a big thing, which would like be basically a nationwide manhunt, that would make this even worse. And I think no matter how much he hates Trump, he has to think about what the optics on that are. Like, this person didn't commit murder, and people that do commit murder get a misdemeanor and do no time. So I think this is chess, not checkers. And I hope his legal team is really weighing all of these options, and we'll see what happens. But I think it's going to really fire up people, even people that don't particularly like him or don't have feelings about politics. I hope they might think, wow, this happens in third world banana republics and communist dictatorships where you just get rid of your enemies. And this will look really bad, and it very well may land Trump back in the White House. By the way, you're talking about all these people saying nasty things about you. Ed Snyder, who's passed away, he owned the Philadelphia Flyers hockey team. He always said, if you, as the owner of the team, if you're worrying about what the fans think, soon you're going to be sitting with them. So I never care what people think. I've been doing this so long and been hearing insults so long, they kind of make me laugh now. So I think you have to have really thick skin and just know that you're doing the right thing and fighting for the future of our country and our families. And sometimes now I get a kick out of it. Someone the other day said I had a lazy eye. I'm like, I don't think I have a lazy eye unless I do that. But they said, you need to get your lazy eye fixed. And I just wrote back, I'm too lazy, because I thought it was weird.
Yeah, that's good.
This is a family show, so I won't tell you the other one, but someone was alluding to how I got my job and said it wasn't based upon merit, if you know what I mean. It was based upon other behaviors with men, which, by the way,
the Kamala Harris path to greatness.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a funny quip. If you think that's how I got my job, wait till you see how I got my husband. So I thought it was really funny just to stick it back in their face.
Yeah. I have moments where I engage. I'm more amused than anything, but I do realize, because I used to think that there's reasonable people that you could like engage back and forth with and go, hang on a minute, here is what I believe, and kind of lay it out. And then once you get to the point where no, these folks are in a cult. I mean, it really is that behavior is cultish. And then there's the people that just, that's kind of their hobby, is to be a troll.
Best response is absolutely no response unless you can say something like hilarious and then walk away, like drop a bomb and walk away. But you can't go, like, one response is all you do, and it has to be really funny, or you're not allowed to engage. That's my philosophy.
Yeah, no, that's good advice, because I make the mistake again of thinking that there's some good faith on the other side from time to time.
Actually, Rogan O'Hanley, DC Drano, that told me a long time ago, I'm like, what do you do when people say really disgusting things on your page? You said, your page is your property, and that's your space to see what you want and say what you want. If you don't like something, block them and delete them. And that way you can cultivate what you want to cultivate. And I thought that was really good advice. There was a woman that I knew, and she became, I think she's like, I don't know, an empty nester and sad and like needs a hobby. So her hobby is liberal politics. Like, she's like an angry liberal middle-aged woman. I think that's like the quintessential.
Oh, that's their voting block.
Yes, yeah. So she was saying all these nonsensical, vitriolic things on my page, and I said to my husband, I'm like, we know this woman, what do you want me to do? He said, oh, just block her. And I did, and I feel a lot more peaceful that every time I post something, it's not her saying all these ridiculous things. So I think it's fine to just cultivate what you want and have the space that you want without being bastardized every day. But I really don't engage with liberals anymore. I don't voluntarily anyway. I won't break bread with them. I won't have dinner with them, because I think they're complicit with the downfall of this country. I think they are promoting an open border. They're the ones that think we should be sending billions and billions to Ukraine with absolutely no accounting. They believe in sexualizing our children. They believe in green energy with no path to actual green energy. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. They hate America. They judge people on the color of their skin, not the content of their character. So I don't really think that we have, it used to be the Democrats and Republicans were pretty close, right? We were all like sort of in the middle. And now I don't think that's the case anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree. We are incredibly far apart. And the truth is there's no compromising with their.
I mean, that's the truth. I really do. That's why it's just hard to assimilate. And I think that we're basically two separate countries right now. You saw that a lot with COVID, how people were operating in New York versus Florida. So I just think that there's a huge chasm between how we all feel. And it's just, I don't know. My life is precious. My time is precious. I'm not going to spend it with people that I find to be reprehensible and have poor values.
Yeah. Well, amen. No, that's good advice, I think, for everybody listening.
Well, to be honest, it hasn't been all that political lately, because one time of the year in March, I'm on the board basically of two charities, and we have Big Dog Ranch Rescue, which is the largest no-kill animal rescue in America, and we have our annual gala at Mar-a-Lago. It's a 2-day affair, 1,200 women. We raised $3 million, but it's not just those 2 days. I've been planning for this for a year. I had 60 people in town. It's a whole production. So that, and then I had the PragerU Gala where I saw you, and then the following weekend, I have Place of Hope, which is an amazing foster organization in South Florida that is just doing such wonderful things for children. They never separate siblings. They house them with families that create a family environment for these children. They get them in schools and have after-school programs on the property and a beautiful gym and kitchens. And it's just an amazing organization as well. And we planned that all year. So that's been my March. And now I'm on vacation, resting a little bit. And then I'm going to get back to the grind, getting ready for Young Women's Leadership Summit with Turning Point in June.
Awesome. So now I would love for you to give me your thoughts in regards to the latest dust-ups between Trump and DeSantis that are starting to heat up a little bit more. I know you appreciate him as your governor. So tell me, kind of what you think, and do you have any predictions or recommendations of how that should go?
I just want to close my eyes and hold my ears and wait. I don't want to watch it getting dirty and ugly. I get the ick. But yeah, Governor DeSantis is a great governor. But I don't like right now that he is on a book tour. You've been, you know what I mean? You won the first time by 3 votes. Yes, you had a landslide the second time, but there's still a lot of work to be doing in Florida and various counties like Broward County. He barely won Palm Beach. I don't think he should be on a nationwide book tour. I think he should be working on Florida. I don't think he should be going to early voting states like Iowa. I know he's been in Texas. I know he was in New York. I think if you're going to announce and run a shadow campaign, then do it. But I know he wants to wait until May, until the legislative session in Florida ends. But right now, it's basically like he's running the shadow campaign. And I just want to make sure that he's keeping an eye on Florida, because he should really be setting up who he's thinking about would be good to fill his shoes and to continue with his legacy. Because I think a lot of people are going to throw their hat in the ring, and I don't think all of those people are the right ones for the job. So I personally, if I had my druthers, I would rather him stay in Florida, have a nice life. You got young kids. Your wife had breast cancer. Thank God she's on the mend and doing better. But I would love to see him stay here and just make Florida this bastion of freedom and republicanism, and let Trump do what he wants to do. And then, DeSantis is a young guy. Let him do it down the road. It's really important to be true to yourself and know who you are and just be genuine. And I do think that DeSantis is that person. I just think it's going to get ugly, and
yeah, I'm
just not really prepared for it mentally, emotionally, spiritually or otherwise.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you, and I wish that it wasn't going to get ugly, but I think it will. I think you're absolutely right. Along those lines, do you have what plans do you have, and how do you see your role in this new election season that's going to be on us pretty fast here?
Yeah, I don't know right now. I'm not advocating for any positions anywhere to do anything, because they are time consuming, and I do have a small child. I know you have kids too, and I really want to have that work-life balance where I'm spending time with my son, watching him grow up, being that soccer mom, if you will. So I love everything that I'm doing, but it's be careful what you wish for. And then next I'll have some crazy job and never be home and exhausted and running around the country. So I'm just going to sit back, relax, and watch it from the sidelines, probably do a lot of commentary on TV. And if something presents itself, you never say no to a job you haven't yet been offered. So we'll see what happens.
Amen. Yeah, well, I think your priorities are right. So I'm glad to hear that.
So I'm not particularly financially savvy, but all of these banking issues I think are really troubling. And the fact that we have a federal government that thinks they're doing a good job, it's just scary. It's just scary how we got here, and watching Silicon Valley Bank have all these people take raises and payouts right before the bank collapsed, and they didn't even have basically sort of a compliance officer, but they had someone focusing on ESG and diversity and equity and inclusion and all that stuff. think that's really, really troubling. I saw something today about how in Ukraine, like I think a banker just bought a very expensive Rolls Royce. And I thought to myself, where did that money come from? Probably my tax dollars. So these are the things that I just read in the headlines and stress out about. I've been seeing a lot of Dr. Fauci on Instagram about how they were going door to door with the DC Mayor Muriel Bowser, trying to force people to get vaccinated in the law. Like there was just so much. We probably shouldn't even talk about that because this thing will get yanked down. But I think we've seen the true colors of Fauci. I'll just leave it at that way, because if I say one thing out of turn, censorship. But I think people are really getting their eyes opened about all of that stuff. And I worry mostly about what's going on in our schools and on the television. I don't get to watch what my son is watching that often. And even here, the Cartoon Network was bragging about Joe Biden's accomplishments. I was like, what? It was like a PSA. It was like really? A PSA for how much work he's doing for green energy. And I was like, can't you just show him cartoons? So I think that our kids are being indoctrinated. And I often say the days of passive parenting are over. We really have to be aware of what they're learning in every facet of their lives, what they're doing on their iPads, who their teachers are, all of those things. Because if you're a passive parent, the next thing you know, you're going to wake up and your kid's going to be like a mini communist.
Yeah, well, I think it's passive parenting that got us to where we're at right now. And so, yeah, we can't continue it any further. But the truth is there is nowhere except for maybe PragerU Kids and some of the things that are starting to crop up now on the conservative side. We're a few months into the year now, and if you haven't changed the way you buy meat yet, you really need to. Let me tell you.
It's so scary because then you send your kid to a friend's house and you don't know what their filters are, and it's just so much to think about, and it's really terrifying.
Yeah, that's why we like to have the friends come to our place.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So what else before I let you get back to your vacation?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think the other issue I focus on is the fact that people don't love America, and I wish that they realized that we are a great country of great people. And I see that the left just is trying to destroy that. And I saw that these Chinese nationals were crossing the border through Mexico, and I thought to myself, how did these people get all the way there? Are they? And then you go down the rabbit hole. Are they spies? So now you have these people who are potentially spies in our country. They can assume any identity that they want. If they go to a liberal state, they'll get an ID. They can vote. And we have these people in our country that we have absolutely no way to account for them and who they are and what they're trying to accomplish. And I just worry about those relationships that we have with this administration and with the Chinese Communist Party. We see that several members of the Biden family were receiving massive payouts from China. And you just wonder whether it's the border in the South or just sort of not holding China accountable for what they want to do to us. It's really scary. I read a great book called The 100-Year Marathon by Michael Pillsbury, I believe. And it explains to you exactly what the Chinese Communist Party intends to do in a 100-year period. And they are fighting a very slow war against us. They think that we are reprehensible and that they want to be the dominant world power and take us down. It would be their joy. And they're not fighting a war with guns and bombs. They're fighting it by manufacturing all of our pharmaceuticals and yep. We need our solar panels from China, and everything that we need is essentially made in China because they came over here, they price gouged, so American companies were put out of business. We sent the labor to China. I mean, the tale goes on and on and on, but this wasn't some accidental thing that happened. This was very, very purposeful, and I don't understand why Democrat politicians don't care, but I guess I do because they're financially being compensated. So they're willing to sell their soul and sell their country to the devil for $1.
Yeah, I don't think they, again, we stopped teaching real ethics in business schools. And so these folks don't think that they're doing anything wrong. They're just getting theirs. And they're, and I think they justify it also. They certainly did in the 80s and 90s when this began, when they were propping China up and setting it up and sending our manufacturing over there. They took it as their own crusade where they were going to, help China, get into democracy by, helping them to become wealthy and of course, line their pockets at the same time. Make it to 2024. 2024? Do you have any thoughts there?
I mean, he has now fallen up the steps of Air Force One 3 times, I believe. I mean, I dealt with 2 grandparents with dementia, and I mean, I'm not a doctor. I haven't seen a brain scan, but you don't need to be a doctor to just see how he's operating. And they hide him and they call lids constantly. He just is propped up with whatever, God knows what, to make these appearances. And I also spoke to a friend that actually, she's a nurse practitioner, and she did a lot of work in neurology dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia patients. And I asked her one day, we were looking at a video of Joe Biden, how he has that gait that he sort of almost walks like a robot, like knee, leg, foot, like one thing goes down, then the next. And she said that's called targeted dyskinesia. And that is the main side effect. And this is just not about Joe. She hasn't seen Joe, but she said when they go on the Alzheimer's medication and the dementia medication, the one first huge side effect is targeted dyskinesia. And that's that gait, that's that walk. So I'm not saying this as an expert, but I do think that there's something going on with him. I don't know how much longer they can run this charade, and that's what it is. I'm just so shocked that someone in Washington hasn't had a conscience and said, we can't keep doing this to the American people. The American people deserve to know what's going on in this country, because we don't know. Who do you think is running this country? I have no idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the powerful people around him, that are in the White House, controlling him and pulling these strings, and that includes even Jill Biden and others that want to hang on to the powerful position that they're in.
That's what I'm wondering. Is it going to take some catastrophic public episode to show the American people what's going on? I certainly don't wish that upon anybody, but at this point, I don't know. These are the things that keep you up at night. You want to know what's going on. And anyone that says, oh, he's completely sound, they're just not paying attention.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the left and the majority of the left, I mean, you can't get them to, even admit that, okay, maybe he's slowing down. I mean, they will throw every excuse possible, up. Oh, well, come on. He's always stuttered. He's always had this. Oh, what are you talking about? He's walking strong and fit. Sure, he's old, but, what do you, and people trip all the time. And, love you to death. Thank you for, coming and spending time with me. I want to let you get back to your vacation, but how do we follow you? How do we pay attention to what you're doing and whatever's next for you?
Okay, well, Erin M. Elmore on Instagram, and on Twitter, I'm Erin Elmore, and everything else, I'm just Erin Elmore, Elmore.
Awesome. Well, hey, you're fantastic, and I know I will see you again soon.
Hopefully, looking forward to it. Have a good day.
All right. Enjoy Aspen. All right, take care.
Bye.
We are out.